Hey everybody, Alex Miller at Capnion here. In just a second, I'm going to give you guys another demonstration of our software tool Ghost PII. And I just want to recap what is the point of doing this from a business standpoint, or more broadly, how are you getting more privacy with a tool like this? Well, the point is really there's a lot of situations out there where you'd love to share data with someone else, or just more broadly put data somewhere else, like a less than double A plus server. It's not prod, it's dev, you can't move the data there, etc. Or another department inside your company, or just any kind of story where data needs to go somewhere for work, but you have some kind of concern if you'd really rather not send that data there because you're worried that that person is going to do something they shouldn't with it, or they don't have cybersecurity standards you like, etc. And we're going to provide a way to resolve what I like to call data paradox. You can move that data there, and then the work can get done. But in a sense, you didn't move the data there. And how that's going to be accomplished is with data in use encryption, which is essentially you give them encrypted data and you give them a special magic trick to do whatever it is you want them to do, and then that actually turns out that's all they can do, and you've eliminated whatever risk was driving you to use this technology in the first place. Let me show you an example. So to do some recap here, we're all about providing people tools they can use in the standard Python open source data ecosystem. We try to make things easy so that if you know how to use Python, you know how to use this. What I'm showing you now is just a Jupyter notebook. I hope that's familiar to you if you've been working in the Python world. Ghost PII is a Python module plus a specialized key hosting service. And what we're going to talk about in this example is that key hosting service is going to give you what we call an answer key that allows you to encrypt the outcome of one computation but not another. And with that is a flexible permission system where you can give somebody the power to compute and then view the answers to certain questions in plain text, but not do other computations or, heaven forbid, wholesale decrypt the data. So in this example, we're imagining we've got two organizations that would like to pool data to do some analytics, and they have some concerns about if things are being done how they want them to be done, and in particular, they don't want the person working with the data to get access to the wholesale combined data set. So in this notebook, we're doing the work that would occur on the data owner side. In reality, this would be two different people running two different scripts at two different businesses, but I've got it all here in one notebook for ease of storytelling. So quite simple what's going to happen here. This organization has a token that identifies them to the API. They've got a data set. This is a standard record linkage toy data set from R, actually. Just examples of fake names and birthdays that you can use to link people together or fail to do so. And what we're going to do is just essentially go through these two different data sets and encrypt them and then set up the permissions so that downstream this worker is going to be able to do what we want them to do and then not actually decrypt the data. So once again, this is the data owners. They're looking at their plain text data. They don't really want to share that bad. They're encrypting it and they're setting it up with permissions. And then now we're sending it to some worker. And this worker could be somebody at company A. It could be somebody at company B. It could be a company at a third-party data aggregator that's performing this task of getting an insight from the pooled data. What's important here is that they are also identified to the API as somebody else. They get this data set with some strings attached in terms of the permission. The API remembers who owns that data set and what this worker third party is allowed to do with it. And then they're going to take these two data sets from these two different sources and they're going to merge them together in one, and they're just going to do some, this is just some silly statistics here, right? And the point here is that this worker was given the ability to compute just standard statistics stuff about the data set, like the mean and the standard deviation. But were they to go and try to decrypt that data, well, they don't have permissions for that, and the API is going to tell them to get lost. And so there's much more sophisticated examples of this. You can give the power to do one type of computation and not another. But in general, the idea here is that this worker had some mandate to do some particular type of analytics work on this data. And we're setting them up in a position where they can do that, but then they don't actually have the power to decrypt. And even we could set things up in the API so that we would get some notification that they had even tried to decrypt. Maybe we had some agreement in real life that they weren't supposed to do that. Now, I just want to follow on and reinforce a couple observations about the demonstration. So you may have noticed we did some pretty standard stuff like pickling. And there's two things I would like to point out here. A, we're trying to provide you just standard tools for handling the encrypted data like you would handle anything else in Python, and this is an example. And second here, it's important to note that the Ghost PI API, that thing that we sent that token in those notebooks, that's not actually holding any of your data. You're holding encrypted data on your own machine, whatever machine you want it to be that's running Python, how you want it to run Python. And this key hosting service is helping you out with this complicated dance of essentially finishing off some very arcane computations on your data. It does not itself know anything about your data besides, how you have this many rows with this schema, and you don't ever send it any kind of information like that. You're handling your data uniquely inside whatever box you want, just like you always would. And to just get into some of the benefits of this, if somebody got into your machine and they didn't have detailed knowledge of how to use Ghost PII, and why would they could run off with this data and it would just be useless. And then you could even tell the API to just kind of destroy its records of that data set, and that data set would essentially become inert forever. And part of the point of doing this is there's downside risk to sharing data with somebody that sometimes prevents things from getting done, things that could be valuable. And this is a great way to regulate that downside risk, and not by not doing things, but by providing a new way where you can do the work that you really wanted to do and get the value that you really wanted to get.